Rasslin, Dave Brown, right along ringside. By golly, we're about ready to go with more big action.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Georgia Championship Wrestling. I'm Gordon Solie, your host, and we have quite an hour in store for us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Championship Wrestling at ringside. This is Vince McMahon, along with wrestling's only living legend, Bruno Sammartino.
Welcome to this week's edition of Mid-South Wrestling Television. I'm your host, Boyd Pierce, another outstanding card.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, and this week we dive back into Georgia Championship Wrestling circa 1982. I am your host to take you all the way, Ray Russell, but joining me very briefly here, going to be the one and only Mr. Jammie Ward, the only guy I can get this done with. Jammie grew up on Georgia Championship Wrestling. Jammie, he shared a lot of stories here with us in the past, and looking forward to seeing what his thoughts are on the return of a certain heel here in the Georgia territory, but also a debut of a new character as well. We'll get into all of that here this week. But before we get going, I just want to promote something we got coming up right here, a new project, part of Regional Wrestling, the podcast, as we're going to continue on the Georgia way, but we're going back in time to the Georgia War of the early to mid-1970s. Of course, the NWA versus Ann Gunkel. I'm going to be bringing in a new super fan and a hell of a researcher in his own right. Rick Field's going to be joining me here very soon on Regional Wrestling. We're going to analyze, dissect. I know Rick has taken it upon himself to conduct some interviews on the side with some of the guys who lived it, went through it, and know the stories. We've done some digging on both our ends, and Rick's pulled up some great newspaper clippings. I found some interesting tidbits as well. And of course, we've done the research in the past. Me and Jammie were talking about Thunderbolt Patterson back there in 1981, trying to upstart rival territory in Georgia. I've talked about it at length with Bob Roop on his podcast as well, the original Georgia War. And we're going to do it right here as part of the Regional Wrestling new project coming very soon, the Georgia War of the 1970s. Who will win? Well, it doesn't take a lot to figure that out. You can go to Google and get your answer pretty quickly, but we're looking to dissect everything that went on in between. So stay tuned for that. I also have super fan and longtime St. Louis wrestling fan Phil Adams going to be joining us very soon for the St. Louis project, and I hope Herb Simmons still on board for the TV era of St. Louis wrestling as well. I got to get a hold of Herb. I know he's a very busy man, but we're certainly looking to put that together here very shortly. The St. Louis project coming to Regional Wrestling very soon. Stay tuned. Steve Crawford out there on the sunny beaches, it looks like somewhere, on assignment, on a cruise. I got to put myself on some of these assignments. So Steve will be back very shortly for more ICW, moving into 1982 in the PAFO territory. And eventually, yes, we will circle back around to Memphis in 1985. Bota, the witch doctor, Gene Jackson, be back here soon as well. We've got other projects in the works and a whole lot more. Stay tuned for more information on what's coming here as part of WrestleCopia. And I do appreciate everyone's patience as we get everything going again here in the new year. I know the patrons are already, or I hope the patrons are satisfied. We put out 10 new video casts over a 13-day span. 2 new Coliseum casts, 2 new Puroresu Academies with Dan Ginnity, 4 new episodes of Regional Wrestling Unreeled with Jammie Ward over there on the Patreon as well, and 2 new episodes of Monday Warfare, the video cast. So you guys can go check all of that out right now at patreon.com/WrestleCopia, a tier for everyone from the all access tier to the VIP tier to the ultimate tier. Get you everything, guys, and then some. Inquire within about the Dropbox of goodies, 2 terabytes of video goodies there for you. But right now, guys, it's time to welcome him back to the show. Here he is, the one and only Mr. Jammie Jam Ward. Welcome back, Jammie.
Oh, it's great to be back, Ray. As I always say, I've been chomping at the bit to get back to some Georgia Championship Wrestling 1982. And we're about to hit a hot period, baby.
We are. We're always hitting a hot period, especially when we ask you. I mean,
Well, that's true.
No, you're absolutely right. We've got some cool things coming here. We got some interesting, fun things this week here in Georgia, kind of a hybrid show of Georgia wrestling as you guys know it, as your mama and grandma and everybody liked it. But we also got some interesting characters floating in here, or character, I should say. We'll talk about that this week on the program as well. So we've got a lot to jump into. I'm going to try to do 3 more weeks here because, once again, we've got some missing footage. Damn it, Harold. But we'll talk about that when we get there. We go back to April of 1982, though, Jammie. Lots of interesting things going on, lots of shaking up. We've seen a lot of characters leave the company recently, but we've seen some new talent come in. We've got national tag team champions, of course, Super D and John Studd. John Studd seems to come and go, though. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. And Ron Bass has been the national heavyweight champion now for several weeks, if not a couple months. I've lost track, but they haven't really done a whole lot with him. And I feel like clearly Ole meant to do something with Ron when he gave him the belt, but he's just kind of been there.
Yeah, he's definitely been lost in the proverbial mix, as they say. It looked like he had high hopes for him from when he brought him in back in December.
Right.
Up to the time they put the belt on him, I think in mid-March. But since mid-March, we've seen him on TV maybe twice.
Yeah, it's like the shiny new toy got old quickly, and let's be honest, Ron Bass isn't going to be drawing the crowds unless you have an amazing storyline and an opponent for him. And we're going to look at an opponent for Ron right now as we go back in time, guys. April 19th, Augusta, Georgia, Bell Auditorium. Going to look at the card. The undercard, Brad Armstrong defeating Ricky Harris, Tom Prichard over Golden Boy Chick Donovan. The National Tag Team Champion, Super Destroyer, and there he is, Big John Studd, over Bad Leroy Brown and Brad Armstrong. Talk about a interesting tag team there. Big boy, little boy. Kevin Sullivan over Buzz Saywer in a Boston street fight. That had to be a slobber knocker. But in the main event, too, it gets even better here. Wildfire Tommy Rich defeats the outlaw Ron Bass to become the new national heavyweight champion. Tommy Rich winning his belt back with little fanfare, little build, not really much of a feud on TV per se, other than Tommy wants his belt back. And we do it in Augusta. Just interesting dynamic all around. But we're going to see why here in a little bit, but just interesting.
Yeah, well, they were throwing Augusta the bone. You gotta change the title. You can't do the Omni every time.
Right.
You gotta mix all these cities up, and they've been doing a good job with the title changes.
And Augusta, of course, one of their weeklies, and we've seen title changes here before in the town, so it's not a shocker, but once you see why they do it, there's a method to Ole's booking madness right here in regards to why we switched the title here, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But another fun match, we're going to see this a few times throughout the next couple weeks here on the house shows. Sullivan and Buzz Saywer, kind of a secondary match. Sullivan had been a heel, now he's a de facto babyface because Buzz doesn't need him anymore. But could you imagine these two in a Boston street fight?
They must have had a great time in Augusta that night. You know, that had to be a Brody Abdullah type match where they just went all around the Augusta Civic Center or Bell Auditorium.
I've seen both guys. Hard hitting would be putting it mildly, I'm sure, when they got in the ring for this. You were getting your money's worth here when you get a title change and listen to this, get Sullivan and Saywer underneath, if you will. So that's a hell of a card there for Augusta this week. If anybody attended, please get with us and let us know how your memories unfold in regards to that night there, the title change and the street fight. But we're going to continue on April 23rd, Conyers, Georgia at the Rockdale County High School. Little small show here. Going to see Tom Prichard over Ricky Harris. Kevin Sullivan go to a draw with Buzz Saywer. It's John Studd and Super D, the champs, over Brad Armstrong and Tom Prichard. Now there is a fun team. And Leroy Brown scoring a win over Ron Bass by disqualification there in the high school.
Yeah, for a high school card, that's a nice, solid event. They were probably expecting a national title match at the time, but hey, it is what it is. But what a team, Brad Armstrong and Tom Prichard.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
At that point in their career. I mean, they would have been great 10 years later, but I imagine they had some magic going on between the two of them, even at this point.
And obviously their friendship goes back to at least here in Georgia. I know years later when they would do the shoot interviews and things, Tom has spoken so highly of Brad, and even in Brad's little brief interviews he would do, he spoke so highly of Tom Prichard. So I know they became good friends throughout the years, and that's hard to have here in the wrestling world, but those two really seem to gel and get along. And that would have been a tremendous tag team if they could have made that work somewhere, because with Tom's personality and Brad's ability mixed with Tom's ability, man, you could have been off to the races.
Oh yeah, especially after Tom turns into Roddy Piper Jr.
Well, we're getting there. That's going to take a bit, but we got more shows. But you know what? Before we move on too, I want to mention at the high school, like you said, it was a pretty good card for a high school gym show. I mean, I'm sure that Sullivan and Saywer appreciate a show like this because they get to kind of water it down, tone it down a little bit here for the high school versus the big street fights they were doing in some of the bigger arenas. So it's time to let the wounds heal, if you will, for one night only. Yeah,
plus it all depends on the extracurricular activities that occurred before they started the show on how good the match was going to be.
Or after the show the night before, and maybe they never stopped. You never quite know what's going on here in the 1980s. 'Twas the times, they say.
Kind of like that Kevin Sullivan Blackjack Mulligan match in Florida that went on for 2 weeks. In and out television.
Yes.
You remember that one.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the story there. Not really a big fan of all of that, but it was the times as well. We're going to go on, guys. We go to the following weekend, April 24th, Atlanta, Georgia, TBS Studios. This is where I say we have no footage, not a single match from the April 24th show available. Damn it, Harold.
He really let us down, right?
Well, he takes it so serious. I don't know if seriously is the word, but Harold gets word that we give him some guff here, and he'll send me a message and he'll say, "Hey man, I'm sorry I didn't tape that week because tapes were X amount of dollars," which they were ridiculous, like $18 a VHS tape or something. And he's like, I ran out of tape, so I had to save tape. And he's like explaining himself to me like 45 years later. It's like, Harold, dude, it's not that deep. I mean, we would love to have it, but I mean, can't do much about it. And for anybody, it's like, well, $18. That's $18 in 1982 money. I mean, you're talking, what, $70 maybe today, maybe more. So that's insane. Oh, yeah. No, thank you. Luckily, by the time I started recording, VHS tapes were like $3 or something like by the late 80s. So, but we continue on into the, I do have results, Jamie. That's one thing we do have for the April 24th TV. Paul Orndorff still here. It's unfortunate that the tapes begin to become less and less in regards to the footage recently, because this is Orndorff's stride. He arrives and he's really getting the big push here. We've seen a couple of the matches, but a lot of them are also missing. Curious to see what he was using for a finisher more often than not. I say that because that one week he busted out the perfect plex and it looked really great, and I'd never seen Paul use that ever in any other territory.
No, if I remember correctly, back at this time, he was throwing all different kind of stuff out there because I believe they actually had thoughts of NWA title run for Orndorff.
Yeah, I know you had discussed that recently on another podcast. Who was that with? Was that with John McAdam? I can't remember.
No, I was with Bob Smith.
Bob Smith, there you go. Okay, sorry about that. One of our own, I should have remembered. But Paul had the total package. I just know that Paul wasn't necessarily a fan of losing. From time to time, we've heard the stories, so I don't know if that played a part into it. Of course, Paul could be hard-headed to deal with at points as well. But later on, he would come around and, he would make a few bucks, some coin, as his career returns later on. But right now, we've got Paul high and mighty. Paul Orndorff coming in and looking great, looking fantastic in the ring. He looks in great shape, and he's going to be here for some time to come, we hope. Buzz Saywer also on the show here on TV this week, putting down poor Mike Davis, having to get in there with Buzz. Kevin Sullivan over Golden Boy Chick Donovan. And then we have our first angle alert. Now, we don't have this week's TV, but luckily, next week's TV, we do have bits and pieces. We'll get to that. But they actually air this angle from the prior week here, April 24th, so we get to talk about it. And I'm so glad we have this, Jamie, because you don't get this every week in the Georgia territory. You already know what's coming here, but it's last week we heard Dusty Rhodes on the last Georgia 82 we did together. And Dusty Rhodes had kind of mentioned, he threw out there a big gorilla coming to town, if you will, to aid him in his war with Ole Anderson and Roddy Piper. This week, Dusty brings with him a shark cage cloaked in mystery. What do you think's in that cage, Jamie?
Maybe it's Dick Slater because he walked around in a box for a month.
That's
maybe
right.
He upgraded to shark cage.
Thank goodness they brought a cage out. I couldn't stand that. But what if they had recycled that box? I mean, they recycled the crate in ICW for years. I feel like they stole the crate from Knoxville, Fuller, and kept it for the ICW. But they used that thing repeatedly. It was like the casket the Undertaker used later on for various opponents. But here it's the shark cage this time around. Anybody could be in there, and they could actually live inside a cage, unlike that box. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out as we go to the ring, though. It's a nice babyface contest between Spike Huber taking on Ron Ritchie. Now, the match going to go to a no contest as Tommy Rich joins commentary here with Gordon Solie for the matchup. Buzz Saywer going to attack the Wildfire, so Buzz has issues with Tommy. And then Ole Anderson going to join in for a 2-on-1. Ole Anderson and Buzz Saywer beating down Tommy Rich on TV. Kevin Sullivan out to even things up for just a moment, but then Roddy Piper joins in, making it 3-on-2. When finally Dusty Rhodes opens up the shark cage, and out comes George the Animal Steele. The gorilla baby was George Steele, Jamie. I'll be damned.
Oh, I went flying off my couch, and so did my dad.
Nobody saw that coming, right? Because George Steele had never worked the Georgia territory before. I don't that I could recall.
Yeah, that was like out of nowhere. But if you look back to things that are about to come, it's kind of a beginning of a relationship.
Yes, absolutely. And it's kind of an interesting start to a relationship to bring in George STEELE of all people. In fact, George, I did a little digging because I wanted to see what he was doing around this time period. George takes most of 82 off. Now, we know he's got his real job, his shoot job, working for the schools as a gym teacher or whatever it was, coach, things of that nature. But George would work the summers more often than not in some of the bigger arenas for the WWF. And maybe some of the other surrounding territories, depending on the year, big time wrestling in Detroit or Toronto. This year in 82, now he works the WWF pretty much every year all the way up till 81. He does not work for Vince Sr. in 1982 or Vince Jr. for that matter. So he's not in the WWF in 82. Very interesting, but obviously there's some feelers and there's some discussion and things to make this happen because George only works a half a dozen matches in Toronto in 82, and then he works this little Georgia spell. And that's it for the entire year that I could find.
Oh, wow. Maybe he was just that busy with his personal life and decided to take a summer off. I mean, look, he's been doing it probably at this point for at least a solid 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly on a little vacation down here in Georgia. Guys like to take those trips down to the South for a week or two, and that feels like what he's doing here. It's kind of an interesting time period that he's doing it, though, because he's doing it in the spring versus the summer, which is when George is usually out of school and things of that nature. So that's kind of interesting. But to see George pop up here in Georgia Championship Wrestling, you can't call it a culture shock, but I called it a context shock. It's like you took one character from one TV show and put it in a completely different style of television programming. And it's like putting Archie Bunker on an episode of Law and Order. It's just so weird. Like, it was like jarring to me to see the animal, even though I knew it was coming. It was just so weird to see George STEELE put and placed in the Georgia rings, the more serious wrestling, if you will. But he comes out here
as a good guy.
And yes, and tell me, yes, and that's something else they didn't really try. Excellent, Jamie. Go on and talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, because George been a heel his entire life, and then all of a sudden, George STEELE hits the ring in Georgia. Gordon Solie says, "That's the Animal STEELE. I don't believe he's here."
Kind of interesting that you take a character like that and somebody saw babyface on it. It's like the story of Vince seeing babyface on the Bushwhackers when they were the bloodthirsty sheep herders prior to. And it works. Not only does it work, the crowd goes absolutely bonkers for this George STEELE gimmick. It's the animal. It's the animal. George STEELE hits the ring, helps the babyfaces clear the ring. As it works, the gimmick gets over here in Georgia Championship Wrestling. Who knew? So it's always good to have a little fun mixed with your good wrestling. And I think George STEELE proved that it worked here. And I think this being on cable TV, it was going to be hard for Vince to recover from this. So this might be why at first they decided, we're not going to use George STEELE this year. We're going to hope people forget until by 1983 that he came in and did this little babyface run thing. Because they're going to make George a heel until, I guess, into Saturday night's main event 85.
And what's even, weirder about it is that it's Dusty Rhodes is the one that brings in George Animal STEELE. And Dusty actually does an interview, which I really marked for at the time, because he said, I first met George Animal STEELE, I think he said either 77 or 78, when he wrestled him at the Philadelphia Spectrum.
Okay.
I always loved whenever I heard Philadelphia or Spectrum on another wrestling
I'm sure,
broadcast back in the day. And, Dusty said it's like one of the roughest men I've ever faced. And, I got him to come here. I gave him a lot of bananas, and now he's going to get that pig face Ole Anderson.
Oh, the pig face Ole Anderson. We're going to talk a lot about pig face here in a little bit when we continue on with the next episode of TV. But before we close out this week's TV, we've got more matches. So big hot angle. George STEELE is in town. He's part of Dusty's troops now to take on Ole Anderson, Roddy Piper, and the crew. But we also have some other matches here this week for TV. Brad Armstrong teaming with Tom Prichard on television. I wish we had it. Scoring a win over Steve Seibert and Snake Brown. Paul Orndorff over Steve Seibert as well. Big John Studd and Super D defeating Mike Davis and Tom Prichard. Okay, looks like a light crew this week. We're seeing a lot of double duty here in the same hour. Mike Davis performing. Everybody's wrestling at least twice, which is common, some of these guys, but for the way I'm reading these results, that's a lot of double duty pretty close together.
Yeah, and we had the return of the Masked Superstar.
That's right. I was leaving that the best for last. Bill Eadie, the Masked Superstar, has returned to town. It's been a while, but it's good to see Bill back. And last we saw him, he was teaming a lot with Super Destroyer, the Masked Tag Team. They were the National Tag Team Champions. John Studd kind of filled in there for Eadie. They became the Tag Team Champs. And now Superstar is back. I like him better in singles, so we'll see if he stays that way as he scores a victory this week over Ron Ritchie.
Yes, I mean, I prefer Superstar on his own. I mean, he had a nice long tour of Japan, about 7 weeks. So it's great to see him back in Georgia again.
We've got action later that night after the big George STEELE debut, April 24th, also in Chattanooga at McClellan Gym. Tom Prichard subbing for the returning Bobby Garrett. We've only seen Garrett once on TV, I believe, since he's been back in action after that injury he sustained last fall at the hands of Ric Flair there. It was a really weird injury, but Garrett came back. I don't know if you remember, Jamie. It's been a couple months now, it feels like, but he was a little out of shape for his standards anyway. But I guess he was booked here in Chattanooga, but a no-show for some reason. It's Prichard over Chick Donovan.
Yeah, he's probably still working on that cardio.
Get the cardio back. And yeah, that's right. I'm going to turn down a booking. Ole Anderson, I'm sure that went over well. Leroy Brown defeating Ricky Harris. John Studd and Super D over the Armstrongs. Bob and Brad, we haven't seen them team a lot lately. Bob's been batting back and forth. He's been working every week in Birmingham and Mobile in Alabama. He's been working all the towns, but he's working the big ones down there. So Bob's been doing Georgia and Alabama at the same time right now. So that's why we see him on some TVs and he misses a week, or we see him on some house shows and then he misses, X amount of dates. That's because he's been working 2 territories at the same time.
Yeah, 2 territories right next door to each other, though.
Right, absolutely.
So it's a nice, easy drive for Bob.
Absolutely. It's always good, to have the bullet on your card for him to work 2 territories at once. I guess it's the best of both worlds there for Bob Armstrong. Anyway, getting paid all the big towns. Anyway, Ron Bass on the card, defeating Tommy Rich, the new champion, by disqualification. So Tommy will retain. And Kevin Sullivan scoring a win over Buzz Saywer in a Boston street fight. Got to keep Kevin over strong as they have other plans for Buzz Saywer. So we still got the street fights coming around the horn.
Yeah, and Kevin must enjoy these because just a year ago, around the same time, it was Kevin and Steve Kern in the Boston street fights. But Kevin was the heel at that point and coming up on the short end. So at least he's going over this time around in his own matchup.
Yeah, the Boston Battler. Kevin Sullivan over Buzz Saywer there. As we move on, got a couple of shows on April 25th. The Matinee Show, Columbus, Ohio, the Ohio Center. Super Destroyer over Tom Prichard. Kevin Sullivan putting down Buzz Saywer. It's Bullet Bob Armstrong defeating the Great Kabuki. Dick Slater scoring a victory over Roddy Piper by disqualification. And a big tag team main event, Ole Anderson, Stan Hansen over Leroy Brown and Tommy Rich. Now, we've beat it to death. We've talked about all the big names that came through here before. And this looks like nothing like that. So that's what, but I will say this. Kabuki, Dick Slater, Stan Hansen, these are not guys that have been in the territory in the last couple weeks. These are guys just making this trip specifically for the big Columbus show. So this is still a big fight feel, a big time town.
Exactly. It's not like they just threw Columbus to the side totally.
Right.
So maybe this is the beginning of something. Maybe they're going to start building Columbus back up.
Well, we know they're starting to evolve into the other Ohio cities, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But first, they have an evening show on the 25th as well over in Huntington, West Virginia, the Memorial Fieldhouse. Buzz Saywer defeating Tom Prichard. Kevin Sullivan taking Super Destroyer to a draw. It's Bob Armstrong over Roddy Piper by disqualification. And main event 6-man tag team action, Dick Slater, Tommy Rich, and Leroy Brown over Ole Anderson, Stan Hansen, and the Great Kabuki. What an odd trio that would make. Stan Hansen and Kabuki on the same side. That's just a weird visual.
And you'll probably never see that visual again.
Oh, I wish we could see it once. I mean, somebody sneak a camera in that night. I can't even imagine how big the cameras were back then, trying to sneak those in. As we continue on, April the 27th, Canton, Ohio, the Civic Center. It's Brad Armstrong over Ricky Harris. Kevin Sullivan defeating Tom Prichard. Wildfire Tommy Rich retaining over Ron Bass. Bob Armstrong over Roddy Piper by DQ once more. And Mr. Wrestling 2 coming to Canton. 222 teaming with Leroy Brown over the, well, we haven't seen this in a while, Superstar and Super D back together again, but on the losing side of things there too. Leroy Brown and Mr. 2.
Yeah, and we don't see much of 2 either. So they dug 2 up for this particular show.
I think 2 was in Florida around this time period, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he just
the JJ Dillon spoiler feud.
Yes, so we get lucky here every once in a while. They throw us a bone, but it's such, you're right though, because we don't see 2 a lot, but if he's working another territory, it's not even like he's making the Georgia shots. He's taking the plane all the way up to Canton, go to work Canton. So that's kind of peculiar that they worked 2 in like that. But I mean, he was still making the rounds, and he's still got his big Mid-South run to come with Magnum TA and whatnot. So, but that's, maybe we'll get that eventually on Unreeled, the Mid-South Wrestling 2. That'll be fun.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait till we get there.
Well, here's a fun one. So April 30th, Marion, Ohio, the home of Charlie Fulton, if I'm not mistaken, or at least that's where he used to be billed from. Marion, Ohio, April 30th, Veterans Memorial Coliseum. I don't know if that's really a thing there in Marion, but anywho, I don't have the bouts. There were 5 matches on the card. I do know the main event was slated to be Super Destroyer and Superstar versus Leroy Brown and Tommy Rich. Now, we're going to see Leroy have some issues with Superstar here briefly, and Tommy's had his issues in the past with him, so makes sense there for a quick shot there. A debut show for Marion, Georgia Championship Wrestling, and that's when one of our listeners wrote in. I had not forgot about you, Mr. John Walker. We were just waiting to get to this point in time. Jammie, I want to read something to you real quick from one of our listeners, John Walker, for this April 30th card in Marion. He says, I'm a big fan of your podcast, talking about regional wrestling, especially Georgia Championship Wrestling. As you and Jammie, he even spelled your name right, paying attention, you guys get closer to April of 1982. That is the first time that Georgia started coming to my hometown in Marion, Ohio. I did not attend the show in April, but I did attend the rest of the shows in May, June, July, and October. And he goes on from there, Jammie, and we're going to get to that on the next episode. I want to save it for when we actually get to the results of the May show for a nice little letter that I guess you could call it, that John Walker sent us there, memories and thoughts and things of that nature of Georgia invading Marion, Ohio back in 1982. It's going to be a fun time.
Oh, that's great. We're going to get some personal experience from some of these shows. That's awesome. And John, thank you very much.
Yeah,
really
we appreciate
that you checking us out each month that we're on.
The kindness, of some of the listeners out there. They write in and they leave great feedback sometimes. And I love when we get firsthand experiences, memories, things of that nature. And I encourage everybody who was ever a part of the Georgia tours to, even if you didn't attend every show, just send in any memories you might have or just anything that sticks out to you, because it's great to add that to the results. I mean, anybody can sit here and read results. That's why I really try to add context and thoughts, to what's going on booking wise and why we talk about the TV at length. But anybody who was actually there, seated in the crowd, to see Roddy Piper and Bob Armstrong, or Ole Anderson get his comeuppance, or Tommy Rich and the crowd rallying behind him, any kind of experience like that you guys want to send in and share with us, we'll be happy to share right here on the program.
Yeah, and I would love to hear these stories, because I unfortunately only got to see the television. I would love to hear firsthand accounts. And I'll be working out big time.
As will I. I'm looking forward to more. But yeah, we got more coming from John Walker here in the upcoming weeks on regional wrestling, so stay tuned. He'll talk more about Georgia invading Marion, Ohio. But right now we go back to TBS Studios, May the 1st. Again, we don't have a lot of footage, Jammie, but we do have some hot angles this week that we're going to be getting into and talking about for the May the 1st show. We are heading into a new month. We're going to see what happens here. But on the undercard, on the prelim matches, Paul Orndorff over Chick Donovan, Bob Armstrong in studio defeating Steve Seibert. It's Kevin Sullivan over Mike Jackson. That would have been interesting. John Studd teaming with Super Destroyer to defeat Ken Timms and Tom Prichard. And Ron Ritchie defeats Jim Dalton. Jim Dalton in the territory now. He's always a fun little prelim guy. I know he wouldn't like to be called that, but that's where he was in his this stage of his career anyway.
Wasn't Jim Dalton the fake wrestling 2 around 79, 80? I'll do some research on that. Something tells me he was the fake guy.
Jim Powell, I think, did it as well.
Jim Powell. Yeah, I'm sorry. You were correct. It was Jim Powell, not Jim Dalton.
Okay, well, I'm glad that somehow came out of the back of my brain. But no, we're gonna go into an angle alert here again this week, and this is where Gordon takes us back to last week, and this is how we have footage of George STEELE making his debut. As Roddy Piper comes out to talk with Gordon this week, he has a little stuffed monkey velcroed around his neck, hanging from his back. I got a monkey on my back. So says the Hot Rod, mentioning one George the Animal STEELE being said monkey. Piper stating that he happens to know that all animals fear fire and Roddy can't be burned. Now, that was kind of an interesting interview portion right there where Roddy kind of hints, what are you thinking, fireball? I mean, that's the only thing I can come up with.
Yeah, well, he hits George STEELE with a fireball. Imagine that fur going up real quick.
Oh, man, no kidding. Talk about, the stench around ringside. I wouldn't want a ringside seat with all that hair on fire. No, but it's just kind of interesting because Piper kind of alludes. You feel like that's the only place he was going with that, but he doesn't necessarily play it up. And I don't know that it really happens at any point. Roddy Piper throwing a fireball, that is. So it's just kind of interesting. He says, all animals fear fire, but Roddy Piper can't be burned. As Kevin Sullivan enters the area to knock Piper and his altercation with the animal last week, Kevin Great promo usually, but this week, it was rough. I mean, Kevin was trying to come up with jokes here, and they were just not good. I don't know if you were even paying attention, but I was like, yikes, you're drowning here, Kev.
Yeah, it wasn't one of Sullivan's better segments. And he's usually, he's not even into the devil worship stuff yet.
Right.
But Sullivan's always been a decent interview. Decent to very good. But this one just lacks something.
So Sullivan was always an amazing heel promo. I thought if he had a story to tell as a babyface and he was hot, like with the Austin Idol stuff and the Freebirds and everything, I thought he was also tremendous. But when Kevin's told to just go out there and cut a bland babyface promo, he ain't it. I mean, and again, it's still believable typically, but this was not, guys. I feel like he was told to go out there and take a couple jabs at Roddy. And I don't know that Sullivan had time to kind of get ready or whatever you want to call it, because it wasn't good. And he's out there, like I said, drowning for about a minute before Ole Anderson comes out. So that kind of saves Kevin from this segment. He's equally upset as Ole about the George Steele situation and not happy that the baby faces in general are making a joke of he and Hot Rod having fun. Kevin Sullivan out here making jokes on Roddy Piper and Ole Anderson. They were showed up last week with George Steele's debut, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But Roddy Piper, monkey on my back, Ole Anderson. So I've noticed this about Ole in the last several months. He had Gene as his partner walking into the new year. Then he kind of mentored Buzz Saywer for a few weeks before Stan Hansen showed up and he took him on as a partner. And now that Stan's off doing other things in between, it looks like he's now aligned himself with Roddy Piper. So Ole knows how to find himself winners anyway.
Yeah, well, he's the booker.
You can just pencil it in, right?
But I mean, the great thing about Ole is he's the anti-Dusty Rhodes. He never makes himself usually the main focus.
Right,
He's up there, but he's never the main focus. So, but he never makes himself look too bad either. He aligns himself with the proper people.
I think Ole booked himself, at least to this point. I think Ole's booked himself where he belongs. He should be, taken seriously in that upper echelon, but he never puts himself over, as you said, in regards to, at the end of the day, he realizes I'm the heel. It's my job to, get the babyface over once we get to that peak, that pinnacle, whomever he's working with.
Right.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia podcast network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia podcast network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
Relive the glory days of Memphis wrestling with the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. Each week, we go back in time to review USWA Championship Wrestling from the 1990s, episode by episode. Join us for watch-alongs, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive interviews with people who were there and lived it. Whether you grew up watching it or you're discovering it for the first time, this podcast is your ringside seat to Memphis wrestling history. It's all a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Listen now at USWApodcast.com.
Hey guys, Ray Russell back to talk to you about all the new and exciting audio and video podcasts we've been putting together over at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. As a self-funded brand, this entire ship is powered by our patrons. It's your support that keeps all of these wonderful shows going here at WrestleCopia. And with that said, I wanted to mention that we now have 3 major tiers with tons of Patreon-exclusive next-level content for our Patreon supporters. And it all starts with the $5 all-access tier, which gets you early access to many of the weekly podcasts, at least a dozen monthly digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure, the insanely detailed show notes for the Wrestling Memory Grenade Regional Wrestling, and the OG Monday Warfare podcast, plus random bonus video drops, archived old-school audio watch-alongs from the early years of the brand. And if that's not all, the brand new Patreon-exclusive podcast, Ranting Raw, featuring yours truly, Ray Russell, completely uncensored, unfiltered, with honest takes, taking patron questions and addressing various topics from throughout wrestling history. It is a whole lot of fun wrapped under the all-access tier for only $5, but things get even hotter with the VIP Superfan tier. For just a few dollars more, you get everything already mentioned in the all-access tier, plus as part of the VIP tier, a whole new slew of videocast series where it's not just your typical watch-alongs. Sure, we laugh, we have fun, but we're also breaking down the history, the context, and the why behind what you're seeing. And as part of the VIP tier, you have access to Dan Gennety's Puroresu Academy videocast, the Coliseum videocast with co-host Gene Jackson, and the Monday Warfare videocast, Raw vs. Nitro, breaking down the history of the Monday Night War. Plus, you also get the Memphis 1985 folder of goodies and all show notes for the Puro Academy podcast and Gene's retro review show. Lots to be had there at the VIP tier. But wait, there's more. For those WrestleCopia backers who crave even more from the brand, we bring you yet another level of content fit for a warrior, because it is indeed the ultimate tier, which gives you everything from the all-access pass, everything from the VIP tier, plus you will receive access to the big ones video series featuring a lengthy look and discussion into some of the biggest pay-per-views, super shows, and other events from throughout wrestling history. It's also a great place to keep up with the big events that coincide with the Monday Warfare videocast and so many other big events from years gone by. You'll also have access to the newest big hit to the Copia brand. I'm talking about Regional Rasslin Unreal, the video series. Get ready for the next level in Regional Rasslin as we dissect territory history in video form. Watch along with us. But still, even more for your money, guys. You'll also receive access to the Treasure Chest, which offers patrons the unique opportunity to download and watch select rarities from wrestling history. And for those of you who are wondering what we offer, are contemplating joining a paid Patreon membership, or simply a curious lurker, a reminder there's a free tier at our Patreon that you can join as well. Remember, guys, no subscription, cancel any time, but I think you'll like the content that we're offering there for any budget you may have. And you can sign up right now, patreon.com/WrestleCopia, or look for the QR code where available. We appreciate your support in helping us pay the bills to keep the WrestleCopia podcast network running and enabling us to continue to bring you all the quality programming that we offer.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
So also on the TV this week, we get some more matches. Brad Armstrong over Jim Dalton, Buzz Saywer putting down Chick Donovan. The Masked Superstar back again this week for TV over Snake Brown. That would have been fun. Paul Orndorff scoring a win over Big Steve Seibert. And then we get our next angle. It does not involve George Steele, however. Listen to this one, guys. Bad Leroy Brown taking on Big Hangman Rick Harris, future Black Bart, when the Masked Superstar comes ringside during this matchup between Leroy and Harris. Superstar causing a distraction out there. Harris getting bumped outside to the floor where the Masked Man going to give Ricky some advice. But Leroy Brown ain't having it, Jammie. Leroy jumping off the apron, double axe handle on the Superstar, tossing the Masked Man into the ring, Brown bouncing Masked Superstar around the ring like a ping pong ball, and then tries to remove the mask. Going after the mask of the Superstar. Brown actually has the mask half off Superstar's face. We can see his chin, we see his nose. When Ricky Harris back in from behind attacking Leroy Brown. Whew, that was close. Superstar uses that opportunity to wisely escape as the match still going on through all of this. Leroy Brown wasting no time. Big elbow, dropping Ricky Harris for an awesome elevation on a big splash. Going to get the win, 2 minutes and 15 seconds. I wrote here, wow, what a wild reaction from the studio fans, eating up Leroy Brown, unloading on this returning superstar, super hot. And in my estimation, the absolute best from Leroy Brown's character yet.
Yes, and we've been waiting for this. I mean, I've been waiting for it again. Leroy Brown, to me, now that we lost Big Red, is probably my secret favorite wrestler.
Okay.
Again. And we haven't seen this matchup dynamic between Brown and Superstar since January, when we had Ron Fuller and the Super Destroyer involved in that whole little tag team situation. So it's great to see these two guys going one-on-one.
I'll say this much for Lee. I've never really been a big fan of Leroy Brown. I wasn't a fan of his work later on in the UWF. I wasn't a fan of his stuff in Mid-Atlantic upcoming here later in 82. But he's been fun here in Georgia, though I feel like he's kind of been floundering, hanging around. He's a big dude, and they're not burying him. They're certainly protecting him. And I enjoyed the team of Big Red and Leroy Brown. They brought some kind of energy to the ring when they would get in there and do some things. So I didn't mind that, but it's a wrong term to call it a mid-card tag team, because we don't have a lot of teams, and that's guys that size are not a mid-card anything. But I would call them a novelty tag team to me. I don't want to see them with the belts, because I don't know what kind of wrestling matches we're going to get with that. But I'm fine with them as a team. They're fun. They're energetic when they're together. They seem to get off on each other in there and have some fun. But the Ron Fuller stuff, I liked Ron Fuller. I didn't care for Leroy Brown and that weird dynamic of that team. It was just kind of an odd makeshift team they threw together. This right here, though, this little angle, I mean, I don't know if it was just Superstar being involved. I don't know if it was this studio crowd was insane, by the way. I can't tell you. I don't know what it is with these last couple weeks of TV. We talked about some of them being quiet certain times, but the last couple weeks, they've just been, for as small as they are, the studio crowd, they are loud and just super hot for Leroy Brown as he bumped Superstar around like a champion. So I'm actually on board for this.
Yeah, well, maybe they had a bad winter there in Atlanta. It stretched into the beginning of April, and now it's getting warm and the fans are rabid. I mean, hey, that TV studio sometimes could sound like there was only two people in it, like a Angelo Poffo TV studio where they got the cardboard people there. But on other times, it would sound like Madison Square Garden with the pitch of the crowd, how loud they would get.
Yeah, we've heard Gordon in the past have to try to shout over top of him. In this instance, I don't know if Gordon can make it, because then we're not even done yet. We've got another big angle on the same episode of TV, which we're going to get to. I just wanted to put over Leroy Brown here because he's going to be doing some things on the next episode we cover here of The Project next time around when you join me, Jamie. And it's going to get over like Rover, if you will, when he has some issues with the Nature Boy Ric Flair. A little precursor to that, though, right now, dealing with the Masked Superstar. So that's fun. It's a good way to get Leroy Brown to that next level. As we continue on this week on TV, though, we're not done yet. We've got tag team action. Going to see Ole Anderson and Roddy Piper score a win over Ron Ritchie and Ken Timms. The footage we have is joined in progress match-wise. Roddy Piper pinning Timms with a vertical suplex. We do hear Tommy Rich, though, on commentary during the matchup, mocking the fact that he has Ole Anderson's shirt, a red shirt he's holding up there, that he claims has Ole's scent on it. I'm not making this up. A scent for the animal to sick on. So the heels quickly coming after Tommy Rich to try to regain control of Ole's shirt. But here comes the animal. George STEELE attacking both heels, sending them into the ring. Tommy Rich not going to aid George. He's going to stand by on the floor and watch on as the animal bouncing both Ole Anderson and Roddy Piper around the ring. And the crowd again going absolutely nuts for the animal, as the heels doing a great job selling here, especially Roddy Piper.
Yeah, who would ever guess George STEELE would be over much as a babyface? I imagine he was when he fought the Sheik and everything, you know, in Detroit in the earlier 70s. But now we're, as we talked earlier on, we're in 1982. People have seen the animal on WOR, and I just can't believe people were getting behind George STEELE like I was here.
I think in the right context, fans will applaud pretty much anybody, you know, and it's like, well, all's forgiven if he's on our side now, and it seems to be working. George STEELE, not a fan of the scent, apparently, of Ole Anderson.
Well, maybe the animal wanted to eat some pig.
I don't even want to know what kind of scent. I don't know if Ole was a scent. I don't know what he'd be. I'll have Have to think about that and get to you guys on the next episode about that one. As we fast forward to later in the same TV program, probably hour number 2, we get another interview with Tommy Rich, but now Tommy not only has Ole's shirt, but he also has Roddy Piper's belt. The belt used to keep that kilt up. The animal has the scent of both heels now, says Tommy Rich. And Rich barely getting to talk when blammo from behind, Roddy Piper blasting the wildfire in the back of the head, taking his belt back only to whip Tommy Rich with said belt right there in the studio. But as the hot rod charges at Tommy Rich got a backdrop Piper on the studio floor. And the brawl is on. But here comes Ole Anderson from behind, 2-on-1. But the heels never really get the advantage, Jamie, because out returns, the animal. George STEELE aiding Tommy Rich once again in clearing the ring.
Imagine how much fun George STEELE had in doing this. You have to appear on television for, maybe a whole 2 minutes?
2 minutes, yeah.
Total?
You don't have to cut promos. You're just going to... It's a great... And you get to beat everybody up, too, right? Like, you're not even taking a bump.
No, you just get to throw... shoot forearms and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you're taking out the top heels on TV. The crowd's going nuts for you. You don't have to cut a promo. You don't have to take a bump. You don't have to wrestle a match. And you're in and out in 2 minutes. I mean, that's cake. No wonder he came down there and said, yeah, I can do that. I can do that for a couple of weeks. No problem, guys.
I wonder if him and Gordon had a few libations before the show started. I mean, there's a combination that I told you, I got to sit with Otto Vons and Gordon. It would have been better if it had been George STEELE and Gordon having drinks with.
Absolutely. I mean, now you think about the weird dynamic, though, that George STEELE, you could imagine him with most of the guys from the New York territory because he worked the New York territory so much, but it's really hard to picture George STEELE side by side with certain guys like Tommy Rich, but here it is. We've seen it. It happened. So there it is, guys. That's why I kind of called it a context shock. Just kind of weird to see the dynamic of George STEELE out here with some of these guys, but it almost like it doesn't belong, but it's just like a guilty pleasure of mine. I'm really enjoying the animal, and I think the crowd's really aiding that as well. The crowd is eating this up, and this is the Georgia crowd. Yeah,
big time. They are absolutely loving it, and they might be familiar with George STEELE from the WOR.
It's very possible. I mean, there's a lot of different things that made the rounds and clips in that nature, but I don't think George has ever worked Georgia specifically ever. And I could be wrong, but based on the little research that I tried to do quickly, I couldn't find any past results of George STEELE working the Georgia territory. So he's new here, and the crowd's eating it up. And hey, man, like I said, sometimes you just got to change things up, and it works. And I'm surprised Ole went with it, but it's working. It's kind of their Roughhouse Fargo in many ways, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Could you imagine George STEELE in one of those Fabulous One outfits with the top hat?
Well, that would be money, Jamie, actually.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
With a little bow tie, and I could see that. I didn't see it at first, but with the jacket, and it's like, then Stanley, like, careful, George, I don't want your hair all in my jacket there. But, I mean, it's... but we wax things around here, buddy. But George STEELE, yeah, that would have been... That's money missed. What's up with that, Jerry Jarrett? You should have brought the animal in to team with the Fabs up in Memphis. That would have been money, too. George STEELE could have been like the next wandering, traveling... Andre gimmick, right? He could have just done all kinds of nonsense.
Oh, absolutely. He could have made so much money. He would have never had to, try to steal Miss Elizabeth from Macho Man.
No, he would have had rats at his feet everywhere he went. But
yeah.
Another story for another day as we continue on. We talked about the TV for the day. George STEELE back again this week. Superstar and Leroy Brown having some issues, so we go on to Augusta, Georgia. That later that night, May the 1st, Tom Prichard over Chick Donovan, Brad Armstrong defeating Ricky Harris. Bob Armstrong scoring a victory over Ron Bass, but also Kevin Sullivan defeating Ron Bass. Also on the card, Super D and John Studd, double count out with Leroy Brown and Michael Hayes.
Yeah.
Roddy Piper over Wildfire Tommy Rich, but Tommy does not come in alone. I did forget to mention at the end of the TV, Tommy Rich returning to Gordon and announcing that he's bringing the animal with him tonight in Augusta, as he's going to rub Ole's shirt all over the animal's face, get him primed and ready, pissed off, but it's Tommy taking on Roddy Piper, and Piper beating Tommy here. And George STEELE, I can confirm now, I have question marks here in my notes, but George STEELE did attend because George STEELE was in town for the big show the following night, so he did accompany Tommy to ringside and maybe likely out there with Dusty and Wrestling 2 in the main event as well. Dusty and 2 over Superstar and Ole Anderson. What a main event.
Man, there has to be somebody that listens to our podcast that attended this card. Please, if you did, give us information on this. Exactly how over was George Animal Steele?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about how over he was in the studio. I can only imagine the response he was receiving here, and with Dusty kind of playing it up, or Tommy playing it up to get the fans even more behind it, rallying them there. Just a hell of a double main event. This is kind of a big card for Augusta, going to the Civic Center too. Ron Bass looks like he's doing double duty. We get a tag title matchup. Michael Hayes back for that one. Roddy Piper over Tommy Rich with George Steele. So it makes me wonder, was there maybe a DQ involved? Did the Animal get involved? But the main event just really sticks out to me. Dusty and the Old School 2 over the returning Superstar. Their feud with 2 and Superstar goes on forever, and so does Dusty and Ole. So that's a hell of a main event in Augusta. They really brought it this week.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you could go back. That would be the main event in 1980, 1979, 1978, 1977. It's endless for those four guys.
And we get it here, at least for one night only, 1982 in Augusta. As we kick off May, we move on to May 2nd. Matinee show, Columbus, Georgia, Municipal Auditorium. Buzz Saywer over Brad Armstrong. John Studd and Super D defeating Michael Hayes and Kevin Sullivan. It's Wrestling 2 over Ron Bass. Bass hasn't won a match, I don't think, since losing the title, nor was he appeared on TV. So pretty much the end of the Outlaw here, unless you know something I don't. Tommy Rich over Superstar by DQ, and Roddy Piper defeating Bob Armstrong in Columbus. Another fun show there in Georgia.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been at this one too. Hey, Piper and Bob Armstrong renewing their feud. And how can you ever go wrong with a show that has Michael P.S. Hayes on it?
Wow, I had not heard you put Michael Hayes over in many episodes, so I should have known that was coming.
Well, he hasn't been here in a long time.
That's what I mean. Seeing his name
up
up
here. Through withdrawal.
Well,
I jumped out of my seat when I just saw it on the previous result.
Even
though I knew he's coming, but just seeing the name in print on my screen right now, I got tingles running through me.
Oh my! I'm not even going to touch that, but I will.
Not those kind of tingles, Ray. But we got tingles just thinking about Michael Hayes.
You mentioned the word withdrawal, and I wanted to make a joke with Michael Hayes, but you can't really go through withdrawal if you never stop in the beginning. So Michael Hayes out here teaming with Kevin on the losing end to the tag team champions. Studd and Destroyer do retain. Piper over Armstrong, Tommy Rich and Superstar rekindling their feud. Wrestling 2, who's not here a whole lot, but he does get a win over Ron Bass, as the Outlaws' time here in the company must be coming to an end very soon, I would imagine. We move on, though, later that evening, May the 2nd, also, this time in Atlanta's Omni. It's going to be Brad Armstrong and Tom Prichard opening the show up over Ricky Harris and Chick Donovan. Donovan out here substituting for Eddie Mansfield, apparently. Michael Hayes even getting a win now over Ron Bass. There you go. Michael Hayes on the winning side of things. You can see not always in the biggest favor of Ole is Hayes, but he does get a win over Ron Bass here in the Omni. Wrestling 2 teaming with Kevin Sullivan over the tag team champions John Studd and Super Destroyer. However, there is no title change, so non-title, or maybe there was a DQ or count out I don't have documented, I'm not sure. But 2 and Sullivan going over the champs. Leroy Brown defeating the Masked Superstar by disqualification. Maybe that feud will continue on. We've got Bob Armstrong defeating the Great Kabuki. And with that win, it earns Armstrong a match with Gary Hart himself, manager extraordinaire. Bob Armstrong going to a no contest with Gary. Now, I don't know if Kabuki got involved there. I'm not sure what happened. We don't have any details at this moment. Hopefully we can dig some up by the next episode. But Bob Armstrong getting in there, defeating Kabuki, trying to get his hands on Gary Hart. Perhaps that story will continue. Also on the card, this is an interesting one. We talked about Tommy Rich regaining the national title from Ron Bass at the beginning of this program. Well, it was all for naught, for the Wildfire anyway. As we get to the Omni, and this is what I was talking about booking-wise, it's kind of a transitional deal. It didn't work with Ron Bass. Ole's kind of given up on Bass, and he's moving on to a new toy by the name of Buzz Saywer. So we give Tommy Rich the title so that he can drop the belt to Buzz Saywer right here in the Omni of Atlanta. The Mad Dog, not yet named Mad Dog Buzz Saywer, scoring the win, and he is the new national heavyweight champion.
I mean, I wasn't expecting it to happen, but looking back after that great TV match that those guys had 4 or 5 weeks ago, it's not really surprising that Ole's been building Buzz up for this moment for the last 5 months, 6 months even.
It's like you either pull the trigger or you don't. You build Buzz up to this. Okay, when is the right time to give him the belt? I'm with you. If I'm watching this in real time, I feel like there's still something missing. We haven't gotten there yet with Buzz for him to be the champion, but Ole pulls the trigger. We're going to see how it works out. We know he's going to have issues with Tommy Rich, to put it mildly, moving forward. But we just saw, last week you talked about the good, solid match that we saw on TV about a month and a half ago. But it was just last week on TV that Buzz Saywer attacked Tommy Rich because he was coming for this title. And it may have psyched Tommy out. Maybe Tommy will come back on TV and make excuses again and say that his mind wasn't in the right spot because Buzz Saywer attacked him and blah, blah, blah. We heard Tommy do that before. But that's okay, Wildfire. You'll live to fight another day. We're going to have plenty more matches with Buzz Saywer ahead.
And the thing that we're going to have to look for, Tommy never brought the belt on television. Let's hope Buzz Saywer does.
Well, he's got to have his cocaine plate somewhere. I mean, right? So,
yeah, good point.
Yeah,
good point.
The Mad Dog, or soon to be named Mad Dog anyway, Buzz Saywer, starting to take shape in recent weeks. He's really becoming that character that we're going to know here. I wouldn't say know and love, but we'll certainly get to know Buzz Saywer here in the weeks and months to come in Georgia. As we close out the night, well, the animal has arrived, the gorilla, if you will. George the Animal STEELE, teaming with Dusty Rhodes, taking Ole Anderson and Roddy Piper to what else but a no contest. I can see that breaking loose pretty quickly.
Please, please, please. If anybody went to this show also, I need to hear from you. Send me a PM on Facebook and I'll give you my phone number because I need to know what this match was like because I remember getting on the phone to get the Omni results to find out, starting like at 11, 12 o'clock, calling into the wee hours of the morning before the phone actually got through. And I heard it was probably a double DQ.
Yeah.
I need to know exactly how electric this crowd was for George STEELE.
I'm going to continue to look around myself and see if I can get any information in some of the old bulletins and things. If anybody wrote in and explained how this obviously it's just going to turn into a wild, crazy, pure sixer. I have no doubt about that. But I just like to get some firsthand experiences of this as well. And anybody out there who likes to be in contact with the WWE Vault guy, he likes to put out some Omni cards from time to time. If this one's out there, tell him we'd like to see this one put up there. It's a pretty good card. Bob Armstrong getting his hands on Gary Hart. The big title change. Buzz Saywer, his first national title run over Tommy Rich. And, of course, Dusty and George STEELE taking on Ole Anderson and Roddy Piper. That'll be a fun one to see put up on the WWE Vault should it exist. So get a hold of the right people there for us. And maybe we can make it happen. That would be fun times. But for right now, all we can do is imagine in our head how wild and crazy the chaos was at the end of that night at the Omni as we move on to May the 3rd. Grand Rapids, Michigan up on North Tour again. Mass Superstar over Ray the Crippler Stevens. All right. Bob Armstrong putting away Ron Bass. It's Buzz Saywer over Kevin Sullivan. Dusty Rhodes teaming with Michael Hayes. My God.
Wow.
Over the team of Ole Anderson and Stan Hansen by DQ. And Tommy Rich scoring a victory over Roddy Piper by DQ as well. A new town, Grand Rapids. They're doing the Michigan tour, and you'll see the big names coming in. Stan Hansen back. Ray Stevens on this tour. Michael Hayes is here. We're pulling out all the stops because, again, we're invading a new area.
Imagine how much fun Saywer, Hayes, and Roddy Piper probably had after the show was over.
I mean, you could lump a lot of these guys in there, I'm sure. Who knows who was all involved? I mean, Ray Stevens is there. He's the king of having fun, right? Wasn't he? Like, he was the first guy that did it.
Well, that's true, too. I forgot about Ray.
So, let me show you boys how to party. That's what Ray said to them. So, no, that's a hell of a card, because that's not the big city. That's not Detroit. That's not any of the big towns that they would run up there. But Grand Rapids was a pretty good sized town, and so it's like, well, this is a new city. Let's bring in guns blazing, and we're going to see that again. Now, I don't have the results for May the 4th in Saginaw, but we move ahead May the 5th to Lansing, and listen to this one. Tommy Rich and Bob Armstrong teaming up over Ole Anderson and Stan Hansen. Dusty Rhodes defeating Roddy Piper by DQ. And on the undercard, Superstar over Ray Stevens. Michael Hayes defeating Ron Bass. And Kevin Sullivan over Buzz Saywer on a countout. That might be the most stacked show, quote-unquote preliminary match to main event I've ever seen. Now, I read the matches backwards, but think about it. You're starting off with like Superstar Stevens, Michael Hayes, Ron Bass, who was just champion a week or so ago. I mean, that's a pretty big card there in Lansing.
Every single one could, as Gordon used to say, this could be a main event anywhere in the world.
Anywhere, just. Gorilla Monsoon used to say that as well. Oh man, that's a hell of a card. I'm in awe that they didn't really put any of the curtain jerkers, if you will, on there. We move on to May the 6th, still doing the Northern Tour, Charleston, West Virginia, Civic Center. Superstar over Ray Stevens. Sullivan, no contest with Buzz Saywer. It's Bob Armstrong over Ron Bass. Roddy Piper defeating Wildfire Tommy Rich. Main event, again, Dusty and Michael Hayes. I don't even know how those two could that even possibly exist, these two on the same team? I don't even know how you do that. Dusty and Hayes over Ole and Hansen.
It's Ego Incorporated would be the name of Dusty and Michael Hayes.
It's my Fantasia partner, baby. Fantasia, Michael Hayes, and the Road of Mac and Dream. They do get the win, though. Ole and Hansen doing the job. They know they want to keep the town happy. You don't want to piss the town off as soon as you take it over, right?
No. And what a tour this has been. I mean, it's basically been the same 12 guys.
And it's all main eventers.
For all the shows.
Yeah.
Wow. Just amazing. What a time to be a wrestling fan up in that area.
Night off for these guys. Every night it's Superstar over Ray Stevens. And you can imagine with Ray Stevens' experience and Superstar's experience, they went out there and they had a fun little match, and they probably didn't have to do a whole lot knowing that they were opening the show. So it had a fun little week there for those two guys on the undercard. So Superstar over Stevens again in Dayton at the Hera Arena, May the 7th. Also on the card, Kevin Sullivan over Buzz Saywer. Bob Armstrong defeating Ron Bass. Dusty teaming with Michael Hayes once again. Ole and Hansen sick of doing the pinfall job, so this time it's Dusty and Hayes over by DQ. And Tommy Rich scoring a victory that night in Dayton over Roddy Piper at the Hera Arena. That thinks wasn't that where ECW used to run their pay-per-views, I believe?
I believe so.
So that's kind of cool, man. I mean, we're all over the place, up in Michigan, over to West Virginia, down into Dayton, and back up to Columbus to take the plane ride back down to one more piece of business here this week, Jamie. We're going to cover May the 8th. TBS Studios, our third week of TV this week, and we do have a little footage on the show as Dusty Rhodes is back in the studios. Talks the men that he's been teaming with, the uncertainty and past history that he's had with the likes of Terry Funk and Dick Slater, but they made it work. Now Dusty talking the unpredictability of teaming with George the Animal Steele coming off the Omni show, said, but there's one man he's never teamed with as of yet, and he and that man grabbed a quart of whiskey and got to talking. That man, none other than the Wildfire Tommy Rich. So before we move on, Dusty kind of blowing off George Steele. That's come and gone. George did his time in Georgia, and it sounds like George has already left the territory. Does it? Oh, the unpredictability. Almost kind of blaming George for getting them disqualified or the schmaz or whatever. Like, I got to get me another pot, no B-Biz.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe even George turned on him after that match. Maybe that's why we got the
I don't feel like
contest finish.
I don't know. He was so beloved. I don't know why I would, if I was Ole, I would have thought about bringing him back down the line if we could have made it work, as over as he was. Plus, I mean, Dusty doesn't even mention here that there was a turn or anything. The unpredictability. You can't control the animal. But I do like that he's referencing that, I've teamed with a little bit of everybody lately to get together and handle this feud that I have with Ole Anderson and crew. But now, finally, now that there's no one else left, Tommy, I'm finally going to come to the man that is, Mr. Georgia right now, the Wildfire Tommy Rich. How kind of you, Dusty. Surprised you didn't go with Michael Hayes.
That would have been a much better team. I mean, I'm going, oh no. What a letdown Tommy Rich after Terry Funk, Dick Slater, and George Steele.
Well, not to the local fans anyway. I mean,
not to the local fans, but, somebody like me who was a hardcore fan back then.
Yeah,
not necessarily smart, but hardcore. I don't want to see the pretty boy teaming up with Dusty Rhodes at this point. I want to see the men doing war.
Times were very different when Tommy Rich was considered a pretty boy. I'll tell you that much. But no, seriously, seeing them together, it feels forced. Dusty never mentioned Tommy. Tommy never mentioned Dusty. They don't necessarily have the same personality. And even though they're both Southern boys, and you can kind of see them listening to country music and having a jug of whiskey, if you will, I could see that. But just seeing them together, I don't even want to call it like a contrast because, again, they're both over top baby faces. The fans love both guys. Dusty's more charismatic, but he's more charismatic than everyone. So that he's always going to be that much different. So it's just weird, though, seeing these two in the same place at the same time. With Dusty and Hayes, it was like, I don't know, like an explosion of ego. Can they both fit in the same studio at the same time as a team? But with Tommy and Dusty, that's not how it is. It's just, I don't know, man. The dynamic doesn't work for me.
No. And you never would think of at this point in Tommy Rich's career that Tommy Rich could turn on Dusty. All those other guys, you were just waiting.
Right.
Just like Ole did in 1980.
Right.
You know, it's just a matter of time before everybody turns on Dusty. But you couldn't see Tommy Rich being, you know, that squeaky clean baby face that he was. He's just starting to get that edge of bloodthirsty at this point. You just don't see him turning on Dusty. So it really is, I guess, as Dusty would say a few years later, this is the original superpowers, baby.
The original superpowers. Yes, Wildfire, Tommy Rich, and Dusty Rhodes going to be teaming up. You talked about the unpredictability of Dick Slater. Terry Funk, the only thing that kept him in line was his daddy's watch. George Steele, again, Dusty literally used the term unpredictable with the animal. So yeah, any of those guys could have easily turned. There was always that dynamic, but he went with them anyway. So why not go with somebody he can trust in Tommy Rich? Now, wise move on Ole not to turn Tommy. He was over and he's going to sell a lot of tickets and do a lot of things with Buzz Saywer and whatnot moving forward. So I'm not saying turn Tommy here. We know he can be a good heel in the right position, but at the same time, imagine if they had turned Tommy here, because he would have been the only one you didn't see coming. Could you imagine the heel heat he would have had?
Oh yeah, that would have been like he had in Memphis, but amplified 2 or 3 times probably.
So again, it's just not that time. You don't turn Hulk Hogan heel in the middle of his run in the 1980s, and you can't turn Tommy Rich heel here. Although just thinking out loud there for a moment, that would have been something, because all the other guys, you were waiting for it. And the one time you were totally calm and secure that nothing bad's going to happen here, that's the time we were all fooled. Tommy Rich makes the big heel turn on Dusty Rhodes. What we do have, though, is 2 former NWA World Heavyweight Champions teaming together, which is a big deal. And it's time they come together, says Big Dust, starting right now. Tommy Rich joining Dusty Rhodes here for the promo. It's going to be R&R. That's Rough and Ready, Rhodes and Rich. May 16th at the Omni. Dusty Rhodes teaming with the Wildfire to take on Roddy Piper and Ole Anderson.
I still would have loved to see the match. And Ray, actually, I meant to say it earlier in the podcast. Mm-hmm. We were on the anniversary of Tommy Rich winning and losing the NWA title exactly 1 year ago.
Oh, very good. Very astute, Jammie. A 5-day run there while Jim Crockett was over in Japan. Jim Barnett and some other people made some decisions, and Harley Race got a good paycheck, no doubt. And we get the title switch. Tommy Rich was the world champion for 5 days, which is 5 days longer than most guys. So he had that going for him there, especially in the Georgia territory. But Dusty also a former champion. So that's superpower team indeed. You coined the phrase right there in regards to 2 former world champs getting it on with Ole and Piper, who apparently are still a thing as a tag team off and on at the moment. So another weird dynamic. Ole and Piper just, I don't know, it's like oil and water.
But it's a perfect combination because it's going to, as we'll find out come October. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Well, we'll have to wait a while to get there, but it is an interesting dynamic indeed. We also have a bunch of matches this week. I do have the results of Brad Armstrong over Mike Thompson, Buzz Saywer defeating David Jones with a belly-to-belly suplex in 5.5 minutes, Mike Jackson over Chick Donovan by DQ, El Mongol, who is preparing for retirement here. He was a big name in the Georgia territory many moons ago, kind of stomping back through here in 1982. Kind of weird to see that El Mongol. Long in the tooth, scoring a win over Bobby Garrett, who does make TV. Tom Prichard over Scott McKenzie. Superstar defeating Marty Lundy, no longer Jim Verderoso. It is Marty Lundy now doing the job to Superstar. I wish we had that footage. Paul Orndorff over Bobby Garrett. Ron Bass finally back on TV without the belt, scoring a win over Mike Thompson. And El Mongol here again in the second hour with a victory over Chick Donovan.
Yeah, I just found out that was the same El Mongol. I didn't even realize it. Back in the time, I didn't realize he had a major history in Georgia. I was doing a little research on late 60s, early 70s Georgia.
Yeah.
And I saw, he must have had the belt
very prominent
7, 8, 9, 10 times. Now, I don't know from personal experience. Is El Mongol the same as the Mongols with Volkov and
no.
That the Mass Super? It's a totally separate Mongol.
Yeah, different guy, yeah.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yeah, and without looking, I mean, I've done digging on him in years past. I didn't do it for this particular project, but I remember him folding up shop somewhere right around 82, 83. And I mean, he was pretty much at the end of his rope at this point. So I think he was just coming through and getting a few shots here at this point. But it's kind of fun to see, the old timers just wandering through. You get that every once in a great while in Memphis as well. Somebody would just show up and they'd put on some boots and work a week for absolutely no reason. And I'm not saying this is no reason. I don't know where we're leading, if we're leading anywhere with this, but it's cool to see that he works both hours of the TV, so they get him on TV. Also, a lot of new names in the job guy department this week. I'm not familiar with Mike Thompson, and we see Marty Lundy is back. David Jones, I'm not familiar with. So some new names out here in front of the TV this week, laying down for the big names.
Yeah, I'm going to guess these are Mike Jackson guys, since Mike's on the show and he actually gets a win.
Oh, yeah, you got a good eye there. I wasn't even paying attention. Mike Jackson with a win over Chick Donovan, but by DQ. So was there shenanigans ringside? What happened with that? Did they actually give Chick a spot to where he got disqualified? I don't really know how that played out. Again, there's some really interesting questions around this time period. And Paul Orndorff still racking up wins day after day. But if you notice, Orndorff is not on the house shows, not even the Omni cards.
Is he still working Mid-South at this point? Maybe just coming in for this Saturday morning TV tapings.
That is a good call. I know Orndorff's probably going to finish up in May, so he probably is doing Mid-South because he was supposed to be in Mid-South through July. But, we'll get there on Unreal very soon as to why Paul's time in Mid-South is coming up short. So stay tuned for that over there at the Ultimate Tier at patreon.com.
The Ultimate Tier. Oh, it's back, Rick.
The
Ultimate Tier.
Goody. Jamie Ward's voice is coming back. Oh, the Unreal show, guys. You got to be part of the Ultimate Tier over there at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. We have a fun time dissecting Mid-South 82 and Southwest Wrestling on the USA Network 1983. So go check those out. Me and Jamie have put up something like 26 episodes already. That's insane, Jamie. We're killing it.
I'm having a great time doing it, right? I mean, I'm having so much fun that I'm thinking about maybe taking the Tom Robinson route and start drinking some hard cider as we watch the shows.
Oh, very good. I like the.
But maybe we can take it to the next level.
I think Tom Robinson was drinking something harder than the hard cider, but that's another story for another day. Good old TR. But no, yeah, absolutely. It's good times. And, I've been waiting 25 years for a reason to talk about Kat Zaboulis. So I am just excited and thrilled to continue on. And of course, Paul Ellering going to be working out with the kiddies and so, lots of great stuff to come, guys. Got to join the Ultimate Tier at our Patreon. But we close out this week's TV after all those matches and Dusty forming an alliance with Tommy Rich. We get a promo at the end of the episode from the new national heavyweight champion, Buzz Saywer. The boy wonder says he's the new champion. You have to acknowledge me now. Guys like Dusty Rhodes, Tommy Rich, Kevin Sullivan, the outpatient Paul Orndorff, he says.
There it is.
He says, learn to love it, guys. Buzz Saywer is the champion. Now calls out all challengers. Beat me if you can, says the future Mad Dog. And he's growing the beard, Jamie. He's getting the look. That look. And his promo felt like that. Remember earlier he was coming out there kind of doing the, I want to say Playboy gimmick, almost talking about how handsome he was and kind of, rubbing his hand across his smooth face. But this is more of that character that he's going to turn into here. And it feels like, I don't know that the belt did it, specifically physically the belt, but the fact that it's now put on him, that you are the champion. You are our main eventer, for lack of a better term. You better get this over. And I feel like Buzz just went from 100 miles an hour to 1,000 miles an hour.
And the piles are going to get bigger, and that's why the speed is going to increase.
In more ways than
he's
one.
He's going to that next level now. You could just see he's exuding confidence behind that microphone, and he's ready to take off.
That helps so much. It's one thing to be a mark and you get a belt. Now I'm the champion and now I'm a mark and I'm for myself. But it's another thing to take it in a completely different situation. Yeah, you give me the belt, but that also means you've given me a position to main event, make good money, and be at the top of the programs. And so I think that's what Buzz was looking at there. It was like, okay, well, this is it. I'm going to make it or break it. And I don't think Buzz even thought he could break it. He's just going to make it. And he takes it and he sails with this. We know he's going to go on with all the feud with Tommy Rich and everything else he's going to do. So I'm looking forward to following the Mad Dog's career here in 1982 as the TV is going to come back to us pretty soon. We'll get to see a lot of Buzz Saywer, Tommy Rich, and everything that goes along with that and beyond. Buzz Saywer and Roddy Piper eventually as well. That's some interesting videos. Stay tuned for that. And a whole lot more. But, man, that's 3 weeks of TV. We didn't have a lot of footage. I did put it up. You guys go check it out. Subscribe, youtube.com/wrestlinggrenade. Of course, free of charge on YouTube. I put up 3 weeks of TV, everything that exists from those 3 weeks. And we cover another week, which we'll be talking about next week as well, including an altercation between Leroy Brown and then Nature Boy, Ric Flair. That's going to be interesting. Good times there. I talked about how much I liked Leroy with Superstar. I love the Leroy Ric Flair angle as well. We'll save it for next week, Jammie, but why don't you tease him a little bit with it?
It's going to be the ultimate bad Leroy Brown because, the Nature Boy wants to come out and say, three-piece suits, the Rolex, jet flying, limousine riding. But bad Leroy Brown is a man of the people.
Man of the people.
And he's going to stand up for the people. And you can't say certain things to Ric Flair. I mean, Ric Flair, you can't say certain things to Leroy Brown and not expect him to take offense to it.
That's right. Yeah, we've got some things that come in here for the Nature Boy. He's going to find out. So fuck with Leroy Brown and find out. That's his new slogan. He needs a shirt. But so Nature Boy and Leroy Brown going to have some words, maybe a little more next time around on the project. So a little teaser for that. We got some other fun things coming. Buzz Sawyer's your new national champion. John Studd and Super D still holding those tag belts, keeping them warm. I feel like we're just waiting for someone else to come in and the right team to come in and take the belts. We'll have to wait and see who that is. Marty Lundy was here this week, and we'll have to wait and see if he sticks around. I'm curious to see more of Arn Anderson during this period, pre-Arn Anderson, I should say. And still looking forward to seeing Paul Orndorff back on the screen as well. And we'll see if El Mongol sticks around. So we've got a lot going on right now in the Mid-South, or in Georgia.
Yes. I can't wait. Right, do we have to wait? Can't we just go ahead and record the next episode now? I don't know if I can wait any longer.
Oh,
we got to get into it.
Got to get my notes together. Got to do this thing right, Jammie. I know I'd like to jump ahead too. I already know what happens on the next TV, but we'll save it for next time. We also have John Walker. John Walker is going to be chiming in with his big, long story here. I love it, of his time, his memories of not just some results, but just actual deep thoughts on what was happening in some of the upcoming events, specifically here in May of 1982 on the next episode. So that's going to be fun as well. Looking forward to sharing John Walker's stories of his time in Marion, Ohio, watching Georgia wrestling.
Oh, I can't wait to hear John's stories.
All right, but for this week, guys, we are going to wrap it up. I do encourage everyone to check out Jammie Ward also over there on the other ship. They've been doing a fantastic job recently doing the Rushmore of Wrestlers, decade by decade. And what year did you guys start with? Was it the 50s? I know you guys did the 60s.
Well, we started with a pre-1960s show.
Okay.
So which I guess we went back to the late 1890s up until 1960. I mean, in retrospect, maybe we'll go ahead and do a 1950s show. But we had enough knowledge. We just didn't do it at the time. This is all Drew Samuel's idea. Drew came up with the Rasslin Rushmore idea, and we're getting great feedback on those shows. So please, if you get a chance, listen to the other ship for the Rasslin Rushmore shows, along with the other shows. Recently, they had a show about Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead passed away. You never know what we're going to cover on the other ship, but our old school wrestling stuff is taking off. So please give us a listen. Or also another one that we rebooked 1987 for Jim Crockett.
Yeah, that was a fantastic episode. I was going to mention that as well. Yeah, you guys rebooked the whole cell from Watts to Crockett there. And that was a really, you guys really put some thought, into that conversation. It was a really job well done. I should have pat you guys on the back for that one as well. So there's a lot of great wrestling episodes, as Jammie pointed out, for the regional wrestling fans out there. There's a lot of regional and territorial discussion as of late there over on the other ship. So check those episodes out. Back episodes, the 1970s Rushmore is up now, and more to come. I have no doubt about that. But for right now, guys, we are going to sign off. I do encourage everyone one last time to give it a try. You can subscribe, but cancel anytime. You don't need to keep a monthly membership if you don't want to, but I think you're going to love the content over there at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. Me and Jammie have been killing it on the regional wrestling Unreals. Lots of great times and memories and thoughts and research, some results in between from the house shows. So we've been covering it from as many angles as we can, both Mid-South 82 and Southwest 83. And I just recently had a patron. In fact, today I responded to him this morning, Jammie. He said, "Did Regional Wrestling, the podcast, go away?" And I said, "No, we've just been getting everything back together, and I wanted to make sure my patrons were taken care of first." Rest assured, you see this is out here, guys. Regional Wrestling is back on the airwaves here in audio form as well.
Yes. I mean, this is our main show. But Regional Wrestling Unreal, I have a lot of fun doing that with you, Ray. It's just relaxing and entertaining at the same time. I just love it.
Yeah, it's good times, guys. And again, I just encourage everybody to give it a try. And if it's not for you, you have the option to cancel your subscription at any time. But I think you're going to be in for the ride. You're going to enjoy yourselves. And there's a lot more to come with that ultimate tier. Jamie, don't do it to your voice again. I need you.
The ultimate tier.
Oh, yes, there it was. The pallbearer, Jamie Ward. And that's pretty much where we're going to wrap things up this week, Jamie. I want to thank you so much for doing this again with me. Georgia, 1982. We continue on the month of May in 82 next time around.
I'm looking forward to it. I'll be chomping at the bit.
All right, guys, we'll see you soon. Another regional wrestling on the way.